The next topic we're going to discuss on Boxing Bros. Liam Paro spoils the coronation for Subriel Matias. So Subriel Matias was back in Puerto Rico for the first time in 5 years. This is after Subriel has become the IBF champion, retired 5 guys in a row, undefeated fighters, made him quit. He makes his homecoming to Puerto Rico. The coronation was set. Subriel beats Liam Paro in Puerto Rico. He becomes a boxing superstar. The YouTube channels have highlighted his success in stopping these opponents. YouTube channels have highlighted how the other champions don't mention his name and avoid him, which was factual. All eyes were on Subriel, and Subriel loses a unanimous decision to Liam Paro in Puerto Rico. Trill dollar bill. Your reaction to this?
Reminds me.
Trill Merchant.
Yeah. Gotta do my Trill Merchant. It reminds me of the fight with Danny Garcia against Mauricio Herrera. It was overwhelming. The love. Everybody, he was seeing his grandmoms and old aunties and uncles that he never got a chance to see. You know? It was crazy. He was visiting this beautiful island. The love was crazy. When he walked in, before they said Danny Garcia's name, the crowd went crazy. You looked over at Danny, then eyes bowled up with tears. I was like, no. I was like, what are they doing?
I remember you saying that. You said he's too emotional.
Yeah, he's not even going to be able to see the guy in front of him because his eyes are so blurry from the tears. He's so happy. He's overwhelmed with happiness. You know what I'm saying? That ended up becoming a tough fight for Danny Garcia, which he got through. You know,
a lot of people thought he lost that fight.
A lot of people thought he lost that fight. He got through with a split decision. This is what reminded me of this fight. I think even leading up to it, when I seen him, you know, in the videos where his people surrounded, he was in a crib. He was in the trenches. In Puerto Rico. He was there with the homies. They was there, the whole family. They was there, you know what I'm saying, chopping fruit with machetes. That was what I'm saying. They was in the trenches, you know what I'm saying? They was sitting there, he was happy. He was covered. He was on the live. He's talking. I said, oh, this might be bad. Being around all that love. And then being in with such a tough opponent. Like I was telling everybody who would listen, I said, even though I picked Matias, I said, this is a tough opponent. And I was mad that he was in there with a tough guy on the showcase fight. I was arguing with some people. Doesn't matter. But I was arguing with some people, telling them, like, you know what I'm saying? They was talking about Eddie and, you know, and I was like, no, that's not it. You know? But I'm going to let my brother cook on that because we was talking about that earlier. But yeah, I just thought it was the wrong opponent for this moment. And it was supposed to be a showcase fight for him in his hometown. I just feel like his emotions got the best of him. He went in there too hot. You know what I'm saying? He started off like he was trying to just go in there and get him out of there, not realizing who he was fighting. He was overconfident. That's what happened. He was overconfident. You know what I'm saying? I would love for them to do it again. You know? But yeah, I feel like it was the crowd and the emotions and being overconfident and just having a tough opponent in him. I just think there was just a bad moment. Same thing that would happen with Danny Garcia. I feel like he was just overwhelmed with emotions and then wanted to put on a good performance. And we've seen this all the time in boxing, you know? And it just happened to be there. It just happened to happen just like that, you know? And not taking away from Subriel Matias, these guys are still afraid of him. You know what I'm saying? These guys are still going to be afraid of him. Don't get it twisted. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, shout outs to homie on his Liam on his victory. You definitely deserve that, and you definitely been call you the what's that your new nickname. I might come up with a new nickname for you because you be creating a lot of upsets. You know what I'm saying? So I gotta come up with a name for you that describes upsets. Help me in the comment section. You come up with a name with Liam for all these upsets. The upset guy or the upset dog or something like that. We gotta come up with something smooth for them.
Yeah. So first, I want to start off by showing love to Liam because if you know about Liam, Liam looks for all the smoke. Like he goes to the gyms, he flies from Australia, comes to America. He's known in the boxing gyms. He spars with the best. He sparred with the best competition you can think of at 140. He has a reputation in the gyms. He's a hard worker. Everyone knows he's a real fighter. And so if you watch the buildup to this, we were never talking about Liam like he was a scrub. We were saying like this is a real fight. But I did anticipate that Subriel would break him down later on in the fight and eventually get the stoppage. But you got to give Liam Paro credit. He did what he had to do. Now, with all that being said, I have to turn my attention to Subriel because one, I do feel like he was overconfident and I do feel like he dropped the ball. But there are a lot of things that factor into that. For me, Subriel is a splash signing to Matchroom Boxing. So he signs with Matchroom Boxing. He puts his career, he puts his trust into Eddie Hearn in Matchroom. So he signs with them to guide his career. This is over Top Rank. This is over all the other options that he had. So the first fight they give him is in Puerto Rico against Liam Paro. So in the mind, this is a showcase fight. They're showcasing me to my people in Puerto Rico with Liam Paro. The problem is Liam Paro isn't a showcase opponent. You don't pick Liam Paro as a showcase opponent. And that's what I've been expressing to people, saying this is a real fight. Now, people, we have we're going to discuss this more in the next segment. But Subriel is a guy who was avoided. So because he was avoided, people wouldn't say his name. The YouTube channels in the boxing community, we said his name for him to get him the exposure. It was on him last night to grab hold of that and become a superstar because everyone was watching. Last night, everyone was watching because of what they heard and they wanted to see it live for themselves. So there was added pressure in addition to fighting in his hometown of Puerto Rico. So there's a few things that I want to highlight. One is Eddie Hearn and Matchroom. Again, if you're going to sign to Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, it's cool. But I made a statement on social media and I said Eddie Hearn's the worst matchmaker in boxing history. And then some people started writing like, oh, well, how? Here's a few things. One, I don't have to answer your questions. So certain people always want to get into a debate. If I feel like it, I'll answer your question. But I feel like I'm going to answer it here. But like on Twitter, I'm not going to debate everyone because quite frankly, I don't have the time to write everyone. The main thing I saw was, how is Eddie Hearn a bad matchmaker when Liam Paro and Subriel Matias are both matchroom fighters? Right? That was the popular statement. I can't tell you how short-sighted and I don't want to disrespect people's intellect, but how short-sighted that statement is. So I'll break it down, and hopefully by the time I break it down, you'll understand. AJ fought Andy Ruiz. Do you remember that? He was supposed to fight Gerald Big Baby Miller. Now, Gerald Big Baby Miller pops for every drug you can think of, and they need a new opponent. Now they need a new opponent. Who does Eddie Hearn select? He selects Andy Ruiz. I remember this. This was a big deal. It was like, who's going to fight AJ? Eddie was like, we might have to get a guy coming off the subway to fight Anthony Joshua. Instead, he chose Andy Ruiz. And not even the bad Andy Ruiz. Not the Andy Ruiz that Top Rank let go. He picked an Andy Ruiz who was in shape because he just fought Dermachenko a few weeks before that and looked absolutely sensational. Don't get it twisted. I know his body doesn't show the hard work, but he was supposed to be food for AJ. Also, keep in mind, AJ was making his USA debut in Madison Square Garden. The pressure to fight in Madison Square Garden. There are reports that Anthony Joshua had a panic attack before he went into that fight. And what happened at the end of that fight? You saw Anthony Joshua's dad trying to get to Eddie Hearn, yelling at Eddie Hearn, and everyone was like, and Eddie was sitting there looking dumbfounded because there were people in Anthony Joshua's camp who felt like he shouldn't have been in that fight. He shouldn't have had that fight. Remember the pressure now. This is Anthony Joshua making his USA debut, was going to be against Big Baby Miller, but Big Baby Miller popped. So he selects Andy Ruiz, gets his golden goose beat. That's how he's a bad matchmaker. He should have picked someone who was easier based on that. He learned from that later, and he picked Robert Helenius in a similar situation. Still wasn't a great pick because Robert Helenius was someone Deontay Wilder knocked out with the first punch that he landed. AJ ended up knocking Helenius out in about 8 rounds, but still people were questioning whether or not AJ was as good as Deontay Wilder. Again, a bad selection as someone who runs a company. Here's another. Canelo trusted Matchroom with his career. We were talking about Canelo. Eddie Hearn makes Canelo versus Bivol. Canelo loses to Bivol. Now, I hear people, well, for Eddie, he has both fighters, right? So it doesn't matter to Eddie. Eddie has a duty to his fighters to put them in the best position to succeed for their career. And so was it best for Canelo to move up to 175 to fight Dimitri Bivol, especially when he was a heavy favorite to win that fight? It was high risk, low reward, because even if Canelo beat Dimitri Bivol, everyone was going to say that it was a cherry and it was an easy fight for him anyway. So it really didn't matter, right? So in the grand scheme of things, Canelo took an L in a fight where he really wasn't going to gain any momentum. Bad matchmaking. So now let's talk about Devin the Dream Haney versus Ryan Garcia. Devin versus Ryan. Some people think that's great matchmaking. It's bad. Well, in the beginning, they thought it was great matchmaking. It's bad because they're split in the amateurs, first of all. So all things being equal on the lowest level, they're split in the amateurs. And there's a thing is someone having your number, right? Yes, Tank knocked out Ryan Garcia. Tank's a completely different fighter. But then in addition to that, Ryan Garcia doesn't make weight. Ryan Garcia shows up overweight. They take the money, have the fight. Devin Haney gets beat. Eddie claims that he thought it was a bad idea and he suggested that they shouldn't fight. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But all I know is that was a bad matchup from the beginning and Devin Haney got beat. You notice I'm naming to you the top stars in the sport getting beat on Eddie's watch. And when AJ lost to Ruiz, that wasn't another matchroom fighter. when Canelo lost to Bivol, that was another matchroom fighter, but Canelo's the golden goose of the sport. You make him move up to fight someone who he was highly favored to beat, and even if he beat him, everyone was going to say it was a cherry anyway. It was really no benefit for him fighting Dimitri Bivol. So now let's move to the 5v5. Matchroom versus Queensberry. Frank Warren beats him 5-0. All of Frank Warren's fighters beat Eddie Hearn's fighters. Now, I know people are saying, oh, it's Eddie Hearn's second team. You mean to tell me you're still such a bad matchmaker? You can't match one of your fighters to beat one of Frank Warren's fighters? You mean to tell me that? You mean to tell me, okay, cool. All right, I get it. This is your second team. But you really make Deontay Wilder the captain? Like, I get it. So what was that about? You really thought Deontay Wilder had a chance to beat Jane? You could have made Ray Ford the captain. Oh, speaking of which, Ray Ford weight drain to fight Nick Ball. Still, in my opinion, wins the fight, doesn't get the decision. But this is Eddie Hearn, the worst match. I called Eddie Hearn's matchmaking out prior to the 5v5. I called it out every single time this happened for the record, and then look at that. Now he signed Subriel Matias, the hot fighter. Everyone's talking about Subriel. You're talking about on YouTube's everything. This dude is on the cusp of being a superstar. No, you don't understand. He's on the cusp of being a superstar. All he needs is an impressive performance in Puerto Rico. He has the island of Puerto Rico behind him. He has every YouTube channel talking about how dangerous he is. And what does Eddie Hearn do? He puts him in a fight that gets him beat, hurting his own bottom line. So I know you're thinking, oh, Liam Paro is a matchroom fighter. But Subriel was on the verge of becoming a superstar. Then you put him in with Paro. You still could have made that fight after Subriel became a superstar. Put Subriel in with someone he can KO easy in Puerto Rico. He becomes a superstar. He becomes a pay-per-view attraction. And then you make Subriel Paro. But no, Eddie's matchmaking is bad. Which brings me to the next point of why it's ridiculous to say, oh, well, they're both matchroom fighters. Because there's a conflict of interest in what Eddie Hearn is doing. There's a conflict of interest. That's why you can't be a manager and a promoter. And this is why managers and promoters should be separate. Because Eddie Hearn matched Subriel against Liam Paro because they were both matchroom fighters. So he didn't care who won the fight, because he was going to promote the guy anyway. And this is the problem. You heard what he said. Oh, I just put him in the ring and I don't care who wins. See, the problem is you shouldn't be deciding who to put in the ring. That's the conflict of interest. If the manager actually cared about Subriel's bottom line, he would be saying, Subriel, this is a homecoming fight in Puerto Rico. There's already enough pressure for you fighting it for the Puerto Rican fans. You should be fighting someone who you can showcase your talents in front of these fans. So that way, moving forward, we can put you in a bigger fight. But Eddie, because he's the manager and promoter, he does what's in his best interest instead of what's in the fighter's best interest. And when you're a manager, you have a fiduciary duty to do what's in the best interest of the fighter and not yourself first. Same when you're a promoter. But because Eddie Hearn is wearing both hats, he does what's in the best interest of Matchroom. So if I lose, I win situation. Just like we were talking about with Deontay Wilder. Signed Deontay Wilder on a one-fight deal to go fight Jane. Really didn't care if Wilder was going to get cooked, because who cares? I mean, I'm gonna get mine. This is what he does. So bring me to my last point. Hometown fights. Canelo Alvarez fought John Ryder in Mexico. He didn't look great against John Ryder. He beat John Ryder up, but everyone was questioning whether or not Canelo was on his last leg during that fight because the pressure. You want to look good in front of your hometown fans. You want to put on a show. But Canelo didn't look that good. Munguia looked better against Ryder than Canelo did because of the pressure. You look at Subriel Paro as another example. Look at Kambosos Haney. He get Kambosos Haney. Kambosos didn't look good in Australia against Haney, the pressure. He didn't look good against Vasily, the pressure. Regis Zarilla. Look at how Regis Prograis looked fighting in his hometown against Zarilla. But that's an Eddie Hearn special for you. Eddie Hearn loves making these hometown fights, although it's against the fighter's best interest, because what he wants to do is guarantee a sellout in the arena. So, Regis, if you fight at home, you're probably more likely to sell out. Oh, yeah, let's go. Forget the pressure. Forget that it's probably not in the fighter's best interest to be around people who know how to push all his buttons and bring him around all his vices. Nah, he don't care about that. So he wants to, now he's talking about making a fight for Liam Paro in Australia. Liam, if you see this, don't do it. Don't fight in Australia. Don't do it. Fight somewhere else. Don't put that pressure on yourself. Subriel from round one didn't even throw a punch. I'm telling you, he didn't throw a punch. I didn't recognize the guy. He's known for relentless pressure. He's known for brutal punches to the body. He's known for pushing the pace. He looked like a guy who was in there trying to live up to expectations to the point where he froze. And like Trill pointed out, Danny Garcia didn't do well in Puerto Rico. Subriel lost in Puerto Rico. And you remember Amanda Serrano? She was supposed to fight in Puerto Rico, but she couldn't. The pressure, something happened with her eye, all types of stuff. But if you ask me, she was just overwhelmed and probably had a panic attack. So, yes, Subriel did not perform well. Yes, Subriel lost the fight. I'm not excusing that. Liam Paro won. That is what it is. I'm addressing the people on social media who said to me, well, why do you say Eddie Hearn's a bad matchmaker? Because at some point, when you make these splash signings, they need to win. They need to resemble what Gervonta Tank Davis is doing. They need to resemble these guys. Eddie Hearn is going to find a way to get his cash cow beat. Death, taxes, and Eddie Hearn will get his best fighters beat. That's what Matchroom has shown. So that's my take on that. And we'll get into whether or not Subriel Matias is a hype job in the next segment. Please like, share, subscribe. Remember, you can check out our podcast on all major streaming services. Thank you for watching this video. We're out. It's the Boxing Bros LLG forever. Peace.